grab with a knife of the wine.
Yeah. Again, you guys, I'm not encouraging anyone to try to pop off bottles of wine with a knife. I think that'd be the last thing that we'd all ever need.
Don't you think you must really have to know how to do it?
Yeah, and absolutely.
This is somebody's party trick. It's going to drive me insane.
You know what? Maybe
the quality of the glass, like the really high quality glass, a really sharp knife will slice it. But the cheap glass, from California as opposed to Italy, will, shatter, and all of a sudden you got pieces of glass in your wine.
Well, maybe you guys, maybe the success of it all is the fact that if you unleash your subconscious mind, you too can be successful in popping off corks off bottles of wine. On that note, guys, let's go live on the Afterglow Live Recap podcast. We're doing it. Let's go.
Let's go.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Afterglow Live Recap podcast. My name is Syya.
And I'm Erin Gregor.
We are the co-founders of Innovation Media Enterprises, a podcast production strategy consulting agency, and we are also the Dallas co-chairs. Why are we doing Afterglow, you guys? Because, well, look at the two fine gentlemen that we have with us, Jonas and Joseph. Guys, you guys chatter so much. I thought, why the heck not? Let's have some fun and change it up a little bit on the Afterglow. Let's talk about the unleashed mind and unleashing your subconscious with Jim Jensen, this past GLO's speaker this week of Business Acceleration 2.0. Man, this gets longer and longer, you guys. Welcome back, Jonas and Joseph.
Yeah, it's becoming like Michelle's opening at the GLO Business Accelerator. I'm like, okay, let's get to the speaker.
Right? I know. And I feel so bad because it's kind of like, you kind of like want to do this and be like, I get it. Everyone should know by now, but you'd be surprised how people don't know who we are and what this is all about and why are we doing this. And
you have to repeat it 1,000 times so that it gets embedded into the subconscious, or at least that's what Jonas will tell us.
Well, okay, you two during the whole business acceleration thing was cracking me up because Jonas, you were like having like 40 questions in a row. He's like, can we start asking questions? And I'm thinking, Jonas is being so sweet. Yeah, go for it. Next thing I know, it's like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, okay, you're on the show. I don't care what they say.
No, the best was like, just go for it.
Well, the best was like, he said something and then I saw, well, that just opened up 20 more questions for me. Like that was your response. Right. Like it was like, they didn't stop.
Well, in the future, we really do try to prioritize the question queue for folks that are full or basic members, because the premium members, of course, have the VIP room. So I know that Jonas likes to take the VIP room over, so I can kick those questions to there. But this was a really interesting. I mean, this guy's clearly been speaking this message for quite a while, and did a good job of. I thought did a good job of presenting the underlying principles of whatever we want to call it, the positive thinking movement.
Okay, guys. Can I just set this off with one quick thing, though, Jonas? Because I know you're going to go. Before I wind you up like a toy, I do want to premise one thing. I'm not familiar with this as much. I mean, I heard of the conscious, subconscious mind and all that. But when he started talking about looking yourself in the mirror and affirmations, I can't help but think of the SNL skit. And I'm like, oh, my God, is he what Stuart Smalley is based on? Like, is that what I'm looking at here? And I could not stop laughing.
It is.
It is.
You laugh, but it is. That's exactly who that's based on.
Okay, now I'm really messed up.
At least that whole
not this guy specifically.
Yeah,
but the whole movement. Absolutely, it was based on that. Look, if you talk to Al Franken, I mean, he thinks the whole thing's hilarious, and he loves that character. And we use that character with Al still to this day. Like on his podcast, he'll joke to somebody, "Well, you're good enough." It's better to look good than to feel good.
So do you guys think this whole thing's BS? Is that the vibe I'm getting?
No. In fact, I would say that Jim, I'm not taking anything away from what Jim said. I think he made some great points yesterday, and I'm not I'm not disagreeing at all that the use of some sort of affirmations, if you want to call it that, or positive self-talk, or whatever, that those things can be very productive. What I would say is that model of consciousness, where it's subconscious, conscious, superconscious, or even, ego and superego and so on, is out of date. We have real science research that is newer and has a different model that has some important implications and makes predictions that we can actually test against. And that, while that may not matter to most people, that does let us have the opportunity to refine those tools, whether it's affirmations or whatever, so that they can be more effective and be more likely to have the outcome that we want. And that to me is the important differentiation that I would make there, is that there's just a new model for this that we could do better, even better.
Interesting.
And maybe, and I know just we want to talk about some things that are negatives on this too, but there's having that better model helps us understand how we get off on the wrong track with some of the things that take you down the wrong path.
Yeah, I think it's important to just affirm that old model, new model, there is lots of good, solid research on positive thinking, how you create aspects of your mental reality through how you engage your subconscious and your self-talk, and all of that. And it's important to acknowledge that there is a there. For me, I start getting prickly around where folks take that and where it ends up. And I thought some of that started happening even on the call yesterday, where it starts ending up in this: you will be successful if you think blah blah blah, or an essential component of success is thinking blah blah blah. And that direct correlation, I think, creates, I was using the word before the call, toxic positivity. I'm in a group called JAX. It's a fantastic group of caregivers for folks whose partners have cancer. And you do not positive think your way out of stage 4 breast cancer. You don't. And when we overlay this positive thinking kind of thing, it creates additional anxiety, stress, guilt, and for folks who need to transition to a different place. And that then they're like, oh, you died of breast cancer because you weren't positive thinking enough. That's the extreme example. But we see that type of example replicated in multiple places. I'm in Minnesota. We're on the 1 year, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. And it's amazing to look back at a lot of the social media talk that people were like, oh, stop talking about, when we talk about racism, that's what makes it so much more real. If we just focus on how all people are good people. And you're like, well, part of this is also that you have to focus on what is true for yourself and for the community. And you don't just positive think your way away from what is true. That's such an immature optimism or an immature view of the positivity. So for me, it's not this underlying issues or the underlying science. It's how it ends up in the pop culture and how it's used by people to sell T-shirts and sell keynote speakers.
No, and see, that's okay. So that's where my mind went. So I am, this has been a journey. I watched The Secret 15 years ago, made some sense, realized some things, but didn't put it all together at all. And in the past couple of years, I've really worked on, all right, what are these thoughts that just come in my brain that I'm not aware of, and working on transferring or changing those, especially a lot around money. What was the programming around money? And perspectives of my life, I mean, it is 100% like 180. I mean, one freaking 80. And I believe in this. I 100% see the value of it when you're self-talking, I'm an idiot, I'm this, I'm that. You can't break through certain barriers when you're just limiting yourself like that. So I believe it, but that's exactly where my thought went, was cancer. It's like, okay, and that's why I asked too, the question I asked about this unwavering belief. When you're in stage 4 cancer and you're going, I am healthy, I am alive, I am cancer free, and you're doing all these affirmations, there's got to be a BS meter happening in the back of your brain going, you're stage 4. Like you know what I'm saying? Like at what point is there a line that the miracle, and miracles happen, I get it, but the miracle of your belief is so far-fetched that you can't arm your way out of it. And I don't, is there a line? I don't know.
Yeah, there's undoubtedly a line, because people, can think themselves into not getting the help that they need. And the one thing to think about that is there's a book called Being Wrong, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but one of the things they talk about in there is denial, and how deep denial goes, and the idea that you can't be in full-on denial of something that's right in your face, like people get, without somewhere in your consciousness or unconsciousness or whatever, somewhere in there, what you're denying, because you have to avoid those pieces of evidence and the subjects and things. Like you have to know where the fence is so you can stay away from it.
And I think
the flip side of
let's just go on that, Jonas, for a bit. We live in a culture that loves denial. It loves denial. We have products that are created to help you deny things. We have, so we love finding excuses. We love all aspects of avoiding truth. So then when you add those two things together, I think that's where you end up with a toxic mix.
Yep. Well, and the flip side of what Erin's talking about, where you positive yourself into something that you can't get out of, is I've been around and someone mentioned on the call yesterday that I won't mention a name because I think it was in the private section, but he had mentioned dealing with somebody, with a family member with depression. And so often what happens in depression is you get into those same negative self-talks, that some of the exact same words that Erin said, where I'm stupid, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. And those negative things, that goes back to, what I was saying about the science, where there's this reflexive thing happening, where, it's almost like you're talking into a mirror that's pointed at a mirror that's pointed at a mirror. If you've ever done that, you see like it's infinite. And you get into this ruminative cycle of I can't.
Yes.
And we would like to be able to say, some of us, me being one of the worst offenders, would like to be able to say, well, you just need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in that cycle, you can't do that. Like, it's not that simple.
I always refer it to the example I always give, because I agree, and I've been in that spin. It's like telling the woman who is trying to get pregnant, right? And she's going through, and the jerk who tells the story, my friend was going through the same thing you did. All you got to do is stop thinking about it. And the minute she let it go, she was pregnant, right? And it's just like, F you, but it's the same thing. You can't, the focus is, you know what I mean? But it's the example I always use.
And let's go back to depression is a fantastic example. How many people have literally died because the medical community has said or aspects of the medical community or religious community or caregiving community said, you just need to think better. You just need to be more positive. That ignoring the fact that there is also brain chemistry issues that happen,
Mhm.
and that there is both a combination of therapies and drugs that can have dramatic impact on saving lives. The idea that we respond to depression by just buck it up, son, is been
Yeah.
been devastating. And in many ways, that's kind of what we're saying here. It's that we want to avoid and deny a certain set of your emotional experience, push it away, and focus on another aspect. And what our psychology you can't do that. That's not healthy. You need to bring those together. You need to honor and acknowledge the range of your emotional experiences, anger, guilt, all of them, and then um, craft your skills so that you choose which ones and how to respond to them, but not put yourself into the cycle of saying, I'm not going to feel angry.
Right.
Right.
You need to feel angry, right?
So I'm gonna try a graceful swoop to wrap this back around to leadership at the company and a broader level. But one of the things that you have to establish, whether you're dealing with somebody who's dealing with a terminal illness or depression, or whether you're dealing with a company that's got internal culture problems, or a nation that is dealing with internal culture problems, you have to establish trust from the top down. And you do not establish trust by saying, you can trust me. You establish trust by actions. You have
Agreed.
to express this with your actions. You have to be present and supportive. And once you've established the trust first, then you can start to work on, okay, why is it that you think that you can't do this? And what are the things? And I'm definitely not a counselor, but that's where it starts, is building the trust. And then you can start talking about, well, what are these things that you need to change in your self-talk, to build yourself back up. And it's not an easy button. It's going to take effort. And I think that, again, to loop it all back together, the dividing line between the woo woo and the BS part of it and what really works is, if you're not backing up your thoughts and your affirmations with positive actions, you're never going to go anywhere. It's just hopeful. It's just wishful thinking at that point.
It's like, I'm going to lose weight. I wait. And then you go back and you're like eating the cake.
Right.
Not that I've ever done that before. I've just heard of people doing that.
So you know what fascinates me about
I write that affirmation on the side of my McDonald's order every lunch.
Well, I mean,
Diet Coke.
But I will say this, Jonas, you've actually done a huge campaign of this. And I thought that's why, and that's another reason why I thought you'd be perfect for today to talk about it, is you're actually living and executing this. Like, if you guys have ever see Jonas's wall, he posts himself. He has these thoughts while he jogs every morning at on some ungodly hour, 4 or 5 in the morning. But I mean, though I've been a stalker for you on that, I mean, I see you actually executing on what Jim Jensen was talking about. You're actually practicing those thoughts of affirmations, just even slightly changing your wording to yourself. And then you actually, as you're jogging, just kind of running it through, you could see a positivity in you. Like when I first met you before the pandemic until now, I actually see you as more of a Zen person. Like you've chilled out, dude, a lot. And I didn't even know you that well, but I can sense a calmness about you. Do you notice that? Have you noticed that?
I would like to say yes, but I feel I'm just me.
He got married.
I'm always,
that might be it.
I got married. That's it.
That could be it.
That could be it. Yeah, no, I mean, the thing that I try to do and hope that people get out of that is that, one, I'm not a fitness guru with a perfect body. I'm a 50-year-old guy who's more out of shape than in, and starting to lose my hair and everything else that people go through, and yet I still believe that my best days are ahead of me. Things are going, they may change, but the things that I do may change, but I will make tomorrow a better day. But what I hope that I'm showing is not just that I'm saying that, but that I'm doing that. I'm doing the things to do that as well. And if that's, I hope that that's what people take away from that as much as anything else, as much as my other nonsense, is that you have to follow up your thoughts and your words with actions. It's also an accountability measure on my part, because if I am saying that you should do these things, and now I've established a trend that you should expect to see me doing these things, then now, on some of those days when it's like, I don't want to get up, I'm dead. I have just one more thing to say. You know what? That one person who's looking at that today is going to know, which is not true. Nobody cares, really. But in my mind, there's an an impetus to get moving and get going and stay on top of things, even when my own motivation may not be sufficient.
So Jonas, I have a question for you. And in the sense of connection to this, a lot of the power of discovering our unconscious thoughts is stuff like meditation, right? You can kind of start to see the playback that's happening, where if you're like in standard life, you don't necessarily stop and understand that as much. Do you feel that you're up? And I don't know how much you were doing before, so I don't know if this is a fair question, but your uptick in running, do you feel like that's really helped you kind of find that place too, where for a lot of people, and I know for me, if I'm running a lot, it can be just that moment of Zen where it is like a meditation, right? Where you kind of have an opportunity to see those thoughts, knock out the ones that, or honor and move on. But has that helped from that sense?
It does help. I would want to say very early that that's not the only way to do that. The important thing is not so much that you're doing a specific activity, even in terms of meditation, so much as that you're recognizing that, what we get into, I call it the ruminative cycle, where you're bouncing the same idea back and forth, and it's amplifying in your head. The important thing is to get to the point that you can step outside of that, mm-hmm. and see that it is a cycle, and then take that, just get out of that break out of that cycle, and recognize that you're a part of yourself. The things that you put in, things equals to the things that come out, whether that be food or exercise or things you read, things that you talk about. All of those things contribute to making you who you are. There's not that's my big critique of the unconscious and subconscious thing, is there is no subconscious. It's all you. It's all a part of the same thing. It's just where you have the spotlight at any given time. And so a lot of what we do and what we fail to do has to do with the things has to do more with the things that we choose to ignore, rather than the things that we choose to focus on.
Wow, this went hella deep real fast, guys. I just want to add one thing, Jonas. Jonathan wants to let you know that he cares, because you said earlier that no one cares. Jonathan's like, I care. So
yeah. Jonathan cares. See, Paul's on too.
Paul cares too. I feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah, Paul cares too. No. So this is like, okay. So again, as entrepreneurs though, and business leaders and, small business owners and those that are looking to grow and accelerate their business. There is a lot to be said though about the way you do speak to yourself your internal monologue, right? Mm-hmm. I did not realize how, I mean, I said it before in another show, how verbally abusive I am to myself. And I let it slip once. I was actually talking, and AJ, our sound guy, like caught me. He's like, dude, don't say that about yourself. And I was like, what? And I had no idea I said it. I was just trying to do something. And it, you know, as technology will not work for you, I guess I was saying something out loud, and he just stopped me. He goes, and he actually put his hand on me, and he goes, hey, you're better than that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then that was something that made me realize even further, substantiate that how important it is, how you feel about yourself. Sometimes it does leak out. And that could also, I think, have a poor impression of maybe how others may either view or not view you. Have you guys noticed that within yourself or caught yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've caught myself in just like tiny beliefs, like just, you know, I'm going to do this. Well, all right, who are you to do that kind of stuff, kind of talk. And yeah, I've, and just watched myself, especially around my daughter. It was really important. I grew up with a mom who just, to this day, I have to stop my mom all the time. And sometimes it's hard to do because I've heard so many people just, and it is like, do you stop them in the moment? But my mom jokingly puts herself down as a joke so that no one else will, right? It's her way of, you know, and so we'll catch her all the time. She travels with us a lot. And I'm like, you need to stop talking like that. But growing up with that, I'd like to tell you I'm better than that. Not in a sense of I'm better than that, but I've been more aware of it and not to talk about, oh, I feel so, and I'll, you know, sometimes say it like, oh, I got a gluten baby, you know, I'll joke, ha ha ha. And try to watch out, just talk around my daughter too. Cause you know, my mom, just always put herself down. And, you know, growing up with that, you're like, well, I think she's beautiful. So if she's not beautiful, then what does that say about me type of word? You know, you just grow up with that subconsciously.
I think kids are a great mirror and reflection of, aren't they? Like I've become much more aware of how I respond to stressful situations by watching how my daughter does and going, oh, damn it. Did I really, you know, pass that trait on? That was probably the wrong trait. And to bring it back to like what Jonas says, I think while our employees are not our kids, they are also a mirror of our own leadership, right? So if we create that culture, so I think then the trick, you know, to tie it back to what I was, you know, what my little notes say, your key talking points for this webinar are, you know, is that the underlying of treating people, those values is different than how we look at the spreadsheet of the projections for next quarter's sales, right? That we have to make a distinction between those things in positive thinking. I can't move into a quarter, you know, with the blind optimism that sales are going to triple, which will allow me to pay back the debt that's due next quarter. I have to be realistic about that. And it's not negative thinking to recognize and acknowledge truth. You know, what's negative thinking is to avoid that truth.
Right.
So sometimes that we need to be able to make that distinction and focus on the positivity around the values of our expression. And one of those should be embracing truth.
But then there's a thing too, I've read enough books, and sorry, I know we need to wrap this up, but it's like that unwavering belief. Like you hear the stories of, like, to your point of, let's be realistic. I need 30K. I've got 10K in a, in a funnel or whatever, in a pipeline. Hitting 30K in 3 months is pretty unrealistic. But then you hear the stories of like people, I believe, like I just read a book where she like put down a credit card. She had no money and she put down a debit card and said, charge this in a week. I'm going to make this happen. Right. She had this unwavering belief and it just came out of the blue. And I read those stories. I'm like, oh, shut up. Right. But
because we don't bring on as the keynote speaker, the 15,000 people who maxed their credit card, bounced and lost it.
But did they have unwavering belief? But that's my question. Did they have was there doubt? Was there that, you know what I'm saying?
That's where it becomes that toxic positivity of, oh, those other people just didn't believe hard enough. I'm telling you,
there's also
millions of entrepreneurs who believed hard enough, dreamed hard enough, and still did not make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's also the you know, the story part of the part of the story that we forget for the you know, your example is that between the time she slams her debit card down and the time she comes up with the money, she's putting tremendous amount of effort in.
Right. 100%.
It's not just I sat back and said it will come.
100%.
No, she was that lady was working her tail off.
She had aphorisms in her, you know, she had aphorisms and meditations on her wall that said it would come.
I know. Well, that's where I question. It's like, did I not? And I know but it's a good point though. It's like, I know in times that I doubted, I 100% doubted. So did that doubt, was it the doubt that didn't, you know, and I don't have an answer. I'm not trying to create an answer out of this by any means, but it
sounds like we can quickly get into a religious conversation there.
Then,
which brings us to 10:30.
and on that note, it's 10:30. So guys, it's always so much fun. And you know, you guys are always such a hoot to have, and I love you guys for it. But I'm on a positive note. Let's talk about GLO, since that's what we're all here for. So Erin, want to close this out?
Yep. So all of this is part of the GLO Global Leaders Organization. Every Thursday, there's a live presentation called Business Accelerator 2.0. You can find it throughout social media. However, we'd love to have you be part of the premium crowd where you get to come back in the VIP room, ask questions for the last 15 minutes, and of course, attend events specifically for premium. And if you're in the Dallas area, Syya and I would love to have you join us. So head over to withglo.com to find out more information and sign up.
You're going to learn something.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And so for next week's guest that we will be talking about, or speaker, I should say, it is taking her off here because, you know, I keep forgetting all the speakers every time. I'm so bad about this. Natasha Case, selling ice cream from a broken truck to becoming a multi-million-dollar household brand. Can I tell you, I think she's like that example of she could have slipped into that toxic positivity that we were all mentioning about earlier. And I think that it would be really interesting to see how she approached things and not fallen into that false sense of positivity that she's going to be successful, even though, you know, she doesn't have a plan to execute, or she didn't try to execute, or she, you know, whatever it could have been. So everyone, I really appreciate your time. I want to say thank you very much to Jonas Bull and Joseph Barisonzi. You guys wave at each other. What? High five. You're like morning coffee. And I think it's a good time to wrap it up for the Afterglow Live Recap Podcast, everyone. Peace out.